One of the most annoying things about discussing Smash characters is very quickly becoming the most annoying thing about discussing MultiVersus characters. This is of course the rules that are made by fans about which characters can or cannot get into the game, with no developer support for these claims or limitations. My content lately has pretty much all been speculation about MultiVersus and my wish lists in certain ways, which really is all the content I can make until the game comes out. I can't exactly make gameplay or do reviews on movesets or anything because I don't have access to the game. And honestly, even once the game comes out, this is a game as service. Speculation is still going to be a big deal because they are going to be adding new characters, new costumes, and new stages pretty much until the game isn't supported anymore. So yeah, I do make a lot of speculative content, and honestly, it's just fun to do. And the one thing that gets the most hate out of all of these videos is the inclusion of guest characters. Whether it's people saying that Kratos could never get into MultiVersus, he just doesn't make any sense, and there are even people that will get upset just because you mentioned a character that isn't owned by Warner Brothers. It is already getting old, and I want to explain why these fan rules have no weight or say on this game with this video. First, before we talk about guest characters, I want to address probably the biggest misconception about MultiVersus, and that's that any and all Warner Brothers IPs will get in with no issue. That's not entirely true. Even when fans ask about including content or characters that Warner Brothers owns, Tony, the director of the game, usually replies with something along the lines of "I can ask" or "no promises." That's completely reasonable, because Player First Games doesn't own any of the Warner Brothers characters. They can't do whatever they want with whatever Warner Brothers character they want. They have to get permission from Warner Brothers. They're licensing these characters from WB, and that means WB has the ultimate say-so. Now, luckily for us, it does seem like Warner Brothers is down to play ball. From the way the developers have been talking, it also seems like it's pretty easy to work with Warner Brothers. That being said, there will probably come a time where Player First Games will ask for a character and WB will say no. That might have already happened for all we know. Whether it's because WB doesn't have any plans for that character, whether they want a more popular character first, or something else, this is kind of inevitable for these games. It's like thinking that Sakurai had complete free reign for Smash. Every character he wanted, even if they were a Nintendo character, had to get approved by Nintendo first. Warner Brothers would have to be the easiest company of all time to work with for MultiVersus to be any different. MultiVersus is also pretty upfront with the idea that any and everything is possible. The developers have said that the entire reason why the game isn't called WB Brawlers is due to the fact that they want anything to be possible. Where exactly in any of the advertising for MultiVersus does it say that this is exclusive to Warner Brothers and we will see only Warner Brothers characters? Absolutely nowhere. They're going to have guest characters in this game, and probably pretty soon. I wouldn't be surprised if the first guest character showed up in the open beta in July. And I would also argue that the people who only want characters from under the Warner Brothers umbrella and nobody else are being way more unreasonable and way more unrealistic here. Obviously, this game is going to lean towards Warner, and I would even wager that at least 80% of the roster will be characters from Warner IPs when the dust settles and the MultiVersus game is complete. Still, the developers themselves want guest characters, and the roster would be way more limited than you'd think if we really did only have access to WB. This would exclude Warner Brothers icons like Godzilla, Kong, anybody from Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Mob Psycho, characters from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Agent 47 from Hitman. All of these characters would be impossible if we were to accept these fan rules as law, because WB doesn't own any of those IPs. They may have distribution rights in certain areas of the world, published the games, or even produced and paid for the movies. That doesn't mean they have free reign to put these characters in whatever they want. The process for adding guest characters is also not all that different from the process of adding characters from Warner. Let's go back to before this game was a Warner Brothers game. Player First Games had to pitch this game to WB, kind of like how they'd have to pitch to other companies why their character should be in the game. They would have to negotiate for the rights. The only real difference here is that Player First Games are on like step 9 out of 10 for every Warner Brothers character now. They've already done the negotiating and the pitch obviously went well because, you know, the game exists and it's coming out. They're pretty much on the 10th step and all they have to do is ask WB for whatever Warner character they want. The only difference is that they would essentially have to start at step 1 out of 10 for characters from other companies, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Now, I've already mentioned Kratos as the character that probably drew the most criticism out of my last few videos. I received replies ranging from Sony being hard to get characters from, which, yeah, that's valid, to people saying it's straight up illegal to have Sony characters on Xbox. What? Guys, come on. Using Kratos as an example, he's been in Warner Brothers fighting games before. Sure, Mortal Kombat had to make him a console exclusive for it to work, but that was also over a decade ago. Much more recently, Kratos showed up in Fortnite, where he could be bought as a skin on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, or Switch. You don't even need to own a PlayStation to play as Kratos in a video game. Even if we ignore Fortnite, God of War came to PC. Most PCs are Windows, and Windows is Microsoft. You can play God of War on Microsoft's hardware. Not to mention that there are developers, including the director of the game, who used to work on God of War games. I don't think it's completely unreasonable to think that the developers might have a couple connections at Santa Monica Studios or at Sony. The only reason Kratos couldn't be in MultiVersus is the fan rule. That's it. Now, Sony can still say no to adding him to MultiVersus, sure, but to pretend like he doesn't have a chance at all is insane. Now look, I'm not trying to say it's stupid to ask for Warner Brothers characters. Even if MultiVersus really was only WB, I'd be a happy camper. I mean, I'm one of the weirdos that prefers DC to Marvel. I grew up with the Batman the Animated Series universe, right? Not only do I love DC Comics, but I adore Game of Thrones. I love Looney Tunes. There's a lot they could add. I mean, I grew up with Cartoon Network. I'm perfectly fine with this being a Warner Brothers game, but it's not. This is a very special, once-in-a-lifetime game, and we need to stop pretending like it isn't. We have developers who care, and they are willing to ask for whatever character we want. I'm just saying that if the developers aren't trying to put limitations on us, then there's no reason for the fan base to shackle themselves to these rules. We have a dream opportunity here, and let's have fun with it. Let's respect each other's picks and just enjoy ourselves, because honestly, there are no bad choices for MultiVersus. Ask for your dream character, even if it's something like Kermit the Frog. The worst that can happen if you ask is that they say no. Do you know what the worst thing that can happen if you don't ask is? That's a character the other company would actually let you have, but they never ask because they don't realize people want that character. I mean, you can bet I'll be championing Phoenix Wright and Master Chief until the game stops support or they get in. Just as long as our requests are respectful, we're respecting each other, and we're respecting the game developers, there's no issue with asking, is all I'm trying to say. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of you who are on my side with this, and you want kind of a weird character, and you're just annoyed by these fans that are trying to shut down anything that's not from Warner. And I think the reason those fans do that is, well, their favorite character is probably from Warner Brothers. I mean, think about it. If they rationalize in their head that the non-Warner characters aren't going to happen, it makes their character a lot more likely. And to an extent, I definitely get that, but let's not ruin the fun for other people, okay? With all of that said, this has been Nosy Boy. Let me know what character you want for MultiVersus in the comments down below. No matter how crazy or weird it might seem, my most wanted character is literally a lawyer, and I'll smell you guys later.